Hello and welcome to the training video. In this video we'll be discussing user-created variables and how to make them. So right now I've got the GulfMed project open again. We're looking at the tree structure here on the left. The first question is, where do you create variables? So we expand the tree structure, and they're actually created down here on the area level. So you're going to right click, go to New, select Variable, and then here we've got all the variable information. For the name you can enter whatever you want. Let's call this units produced. Metrics will try to guess an abbreviation for you. If you don't like it, you can just change it to whatever you want. We're just going to call it UNI. The next thing it's going to ask for is the description. You don't have to put this in either. Let's call this widgets produced per bill. And for units, we'll just call them units. This register here on the left works much the same way as it does in the bill register. You enter the end date and the number of units, and up here the beginning of readings box works the same way as your first day of first bill box did in the bill register. You can copy paste into this register much the same way as you can in the bill register. So now let's look at a variable I've already created to save some time. For this variable, I've decided to set it up so that the end dates match the end dates within my bill register. You don't actually have to do it this way. You could enter your variables monthly, weekly, yearly, however you want them to be. One thing to keep in mind is that Metrics does have a limit of 244 entries into your variable window, so if you're going to try to enter variables daily, it's not going to work for very long. Another thing to be aware of is that if the bill periods for your variable don't match the bill periods on your meter, Metrics is going to prorate the variable value so that it's matched differently on your meter than what is listed here. Now that we've got a variable set up, let's go back to our meter and see how well it tunes to it. We go back over here to the tuning tab. The first thing we want to do is look at it on the x-axis. Alright, so I look here, I'm going to auto tune. I don't see any trends, so let's see if Metrics picks one up for us. It doesn't look like it has, which is unfortunate, but this does happen occasionally. It's not something to be discouraged about because Metrics will usually pick up a fairly decent trend for most variables that you enter. A really common variable that we here tune to is occupancy, especially for school schedules. There's a couple different ways to do this, and it can be a little bit complicated, so I'm going to run through it. There's also an FAQ online that provides a small example as well. So here we have all of our holiday dates for a school year, excluding winter break. We look at this, and there's two different ways that you could think of to enter these holiday dates. One of the things you might think of first is actually doing it daily. Like we said before, with only 244 variable entries, you're not even going to be able to get through a single school year, so that's not going to work. The next option here we have listed is putting the number of school days per month and listing them on the end of the month. This is okay, but the problem with it is that, like we said before, Metrics is going to try to prorate a lot of these numbers. So if you had a bill that went from April 15th to May 15th, it's going to try to prorate those 20 and 10, and it's going to come up with a much different value than the actual number of school days that you have during that period. There is a much better way to do this, and it involves entering your holidays in as their own variable entries. So let's take a look at our holiday dates again, and we'll see if we can get this worked out right. If we go here, this is the variable entry that I prefer to use. What you've got here is each holiday is listed as a 0, and then after that you have the day before the next holiday, and that value is listed as the number of days in between. This gets a little bit complicated on your longer breaks, so if you look here we have spring break from 4/16 to 4/30, and if you see we have an entry for 4/15 and 4/30, so you use the last date of the holiday and the day before the holiday, and that should work out pretty nicely. See, we've done it again here. This is the day before summer break starts, and this is the last day of summer break, so it's been entered as a 0. You could expand this to include your winter schedule, and it's pretty well adaptable by meter. It prorates nicely, and it handles all of the issues quite well.